Hello, Babaderos sees. I donated that. We'll get back. We'll get to that. See my live streams. Don't miss my live streams, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the topics in the news have junction to a pattern of predicate acts and federal rules, crimes, and federal rules of evidences, crimes, and natures of identity theft, frauds, and slanders, instances, and relative whole bunch of different falsified police reports and roles with names on all sides of criminal and civil and of civil cases and their sources and the news at the same time and the interbranch names, switching sequences and names and planting fake motivations and where and how there are real motivations because that's being used to screen. For example, roles with the agencies, fabricating audio and video, uses of predicate acts methods, where and how manifest originally and still was where was in their readings of statutes criminally foreign influenced, simultaneously tactically delusions wrought, and the difference of that also assigned and employed by a breaching method that had also been sustained since before our founders were born, specifically to not only have it all collusion at all formal identity of the law of locations, and the difference of that with overt criminal enterprises and private ones we know that had been juxtaposed with the branches of government collusions with a breaching method that nature shows us with questions that nature shows us is a scientific value what slavery was about, where the scientific value of how one of the things that slavery was about always is about how it was about a human fact treating nature breaching method always, that it was an identity variable and constant too. And nature uses what is variable and constant the ways we know, individual, finite, grouped and together, as the value of what is sequenced before this. And now, as the value we know is to come, we don't know what it is yet now, but to an extent, too. This is what computers teach, but they break it down because they had it broken down to them. You guys were forced through criminally foreign influence sciences that are also simultaneously tactically delusions wrought. And the nature of the debate with this, it came with you reliant upon that. So as natures as criminal insidiousness, so self-valued having been um, left with the right to lie to be used with in the difference of the right to lie to be used by by the people, by the courts, by the branch of government, individual group together, or the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of the people of logic A through Z, and uses of names, because this is an identity racketeering method. They're lying about what they think are the motivations of people as celebrities, sickly distinctly from other YouTubers, sickly distinctly from the branches of government. There are names on off the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York, and on off the court next to it, and the buildings next to it, leading up to it long term and short term ways. From Connecticut, intercities that already been used criminally foreign influence. And this is relative to readings of statutes, for example, that give the benefit of the doubt to the interbranch names based on who's got what degree and things like that. But they left out and leave out exceptions in exception nature. And so one of the ways they got away with it too, that the breaching method knew that suits and ties counters to them and exceptions would stay collusions with each other. Now, before the one of the things that religions are about commonly is not being allowed to be addressed because there's still collusions against the religion in their name, and as collusions with the people that counter the religions, and that's also because they've used remotely since semi-ancient times, before modern religions came about, already the names of humanity A through Z of the human species bodies, individual bodies, names, individually grouped too, all grouped names. Even if someone makes up a new group now, it is inseparable. Every part of it is inseparable from five identities of possession by five distinct identities of sequence nature as possession of its complete identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Each cell of your body is five distinct identities of the fusion of water and gases. I mean, of water and its elements, of gases and of their elements, of the cell nucleus's value, of the cell body's value, and of the cell wall slash S, where value is nature slash nature is value. And the invisible slash hyper invisible begins and stays our subject slash S individually grouped in together. People want to have debates about who's right or wrong on subjects and then use psychiatry's words like ego, like narcissistic. They are making summaries of people as collusions with methods at all locations slash S, where on a mass scale people's words are changed and totally faked for themselves. On campuses filmed 24/7, where parents can't go over there and watch them all the time. And when parents can't work and even mental, they don't have the time for the insidiousness that was left manifest and used remotely, specifically to have the people roles with it show needs and means to blame other things, others, ourselves, and to keep that. And where and how this kept sustained collusions at formal legal places. The three branches of government individually grouped together with colonization, with what Jim Crow laws are about. Jim Crow laws are about that predicate acts with facts method slash S we are aware of when we hear the color black slander. And we miss how it's connected to. Hyper additionally, where black and white are labeled. I wish I had 10 right now. And the nature of debate, the use of difference. How long we're going to leave out how the black and white legal identities have roles and had roles, keeping how we have black people's whites of eyes left out. It's inseparable from laws that use black and white. And what's inseparable from is how the breaching method used it through our own and how that was sustained. So once it's sustained at formal locations, that too is demonstrated by nature to people at other locations. Sensibilities, therefore. And then now people are lying here, and the difference of that, and they're pretending other. Is that we know this was recorded. We know that we are this human species volume, and we didn't want that breaching method sustained upon Native Americans before our founders were born, sustained on them individually grouped in together. If you're honest about what you thought and perceived when you were a kid, you discern three identities of volume. One as one as the the sides that were fighting with each other about how to best counter syntactically the 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 breaching method, the fact-cheating nature torture, simultaneous extortion, and fact-cheating nature slavery method. Otherwise, that body was sensed, even if that what body was a majority of people, and through their own they were sensed, and they would notify. The breaching method, individually grouped and together, also grouped. This consciously measured and maintained from some ancient times. Self-value defensive uses of all grouped names. This is using identities, value slash value progression system, therefore names. But what it's using it for is only hyper additionally, increasingly at the interbranch and or formal, you know, locations where they have depositions, where anyone lives, associated with any kind of formal fact treatment. Everywhere there's a database, there are roles with predicate acts methods, where they're putting illusions in databases, per uses of it, where there are phenomena tied to where and to how names on all sides of cases and the families interbridge and the adjacents and conjunctions to everyone. The people before they have all the natures of services and things out there are actually manifest a certain type of slash to measure and maintain other things others themselves left out are blamed. Where and how the breaching method itself is a scientific value. Where and how proper descriptions of how reason works is scientific value. So what they have, they are shown how they are used remotely there as other locations, not just those formal locations. But that's hyper additionally. So the difference between that two, the breaching method set that up. What witch trials were about. When you hear about witch trials, and you know they're in the context with the slavery and the torture and the extortion of our founders that was entrenched, sickly distinctly against the Native Americans. And having been through against the Native Americans through them too, already having been possessed by that method. If you thought about what the religious messengers were about and why and how we were supposed to have religious rights simultaneously, slash hyper simultaneously. We're supposed to have rights that are too innumerable. But this is being prevented its value with treatments of the language of regarding what amendment says what. They're preventing, collusion slash S with those voices since they were little kids. Because honest, at each age of fact treatment nature, what nature showing us to correlate and speak, it is and has been tactical ulterior than we have spoken or otherwise that we were sensed, individually grouped, even if it's countries grouped, and together, even if it's a majority, in other words, too, grouped, any grouping, we are sensed, and that is adapted to. That's why it's important to understand how nature is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible, not as, but while as anyway. The order of the finite, the order of those active group things, and the value of the simultaneous being conjunctive too. The identity of hyper simultaneous that revealed why and how. Its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that per science. It is not us or the other species bodies that have them, even insects, with qualities, aspects in nature, distinctly, but also non distinctly and simultaneously with ourselves. And also further, hyper simultaneously. Again, because not us or that, or that identity of hyper simultaneous nature, its identity relation to and the value of that is this value we share. In that way, as the perfect system, which is hyper native pure, it shows us you guys better value the difference of Native Americans, but you guys can't value that only to an extent, including as Native Americans, because your education has been changed. You guys have left out the value of how the breaching method before our founders were born. They tactically denatured the ground. The means to there were proofs there was migrations. Maybe not everyone migrated back and forth, like with America's first 13 colonies, which were counter extorted, and there were more than 13 colonies, and they were themselves divided, already factored nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved. already blaming on other things other than ourselves, the causes of that which came from before. Modern religious messengers. The beginning of the Old Quran, the beginning of the Quran, and the beginning of the Old Testament. They both have parts that say this is the only part you have to know. And they qualify that to make the individual have the voice, to be able to force the quality of fact, human nature, to make reasons, descriptions proper. But rather than have that understood, they have collusions with the atheists, with other religions, and with their own religion. People who know the most about these religions and books, using that to get over and keep the nature of debate. Or he said, she said. So no, they're going to use the experts on hearsay when there's things like Jim Crow's or black-white laws that leave out the breaching method. It's even worse than Jim Crow. See, we don't make the injunctive reliefs the way the breaching method wants us to make them. We don't describe it the way the breaching method wants and needs us to describe it, while it's using everyone's difference. Our founders left us to show, communicate for themselves, other than you guys have allowed to be communicated for themselves, black pupils. We're supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. We were supposed to tell no lies with this. We're supposed to value no lies, no truths used for lies, or to hide what came first, the value of what came first. And this is per how reason works again, how programming works, is a mimic of this. It works the same way, finite active group sequence, but hyper-additional ways too. So where it appears to be different, it comes. That's just a phenomenon relative to where and how it shows the same things, but it also shows how nature uses hyper-additionally ways it is what came first before the smallest or finite detail now, for example, and it is what will be once all identities or values slash value progression that are temporary positive are no longer temporary positive. And everything that's temporary positive already forced to an extent to be increasingly, we are forced to be positive, only positive onto itself as temporary, but it's showing us the difference between temporary and lasting, space, nature, and positives and negatives. But this comes through its system. These systems were designed for that torture, extortion, slavery method, and deny it with sense and sensibilities as psychopaths with definitions, discernment, descriptions of calmness and or of aggression simultaneously know to have this problem. You guys missed how, for example, it's a magic trick. If you entertain calmness, and you guys are entertaining calmness, you're not allowing a demonstration. You guys have roles with your beliefs regarding the validity of what others say, what their motivations are for speaking. So we know that those formal locations could and did, and it's recorded, they still do, have rules with, as the experts supposed to solve things regarding hearsay. They've been lying and then needing to not be proper with that. Increasingly at those locations, they are shown needs or that those are identities were already used. They can't speak about when they pretend they need to pretend they are integrity where they are not. The branches of government. They have need to pretend, in other words, we have black pupils. There were Jim Crow, they didn't have integrity. The nature, that's debatable. If you examine the nature of debate, the only way it could get away with it, for example, so it's self-valuing where and how, other than our founders told us to communicate, is communicated about as what took place right before the Constitutional Convention, through the Constitutional Convention and since. We're supposed to understand how George Washington and James Madison had to counter extort the other founders. We're supposed to understand how the only means they had to do that The only reason they were capable of doing that is because the Native Americans were still trying to get damage control and a way to overcome forced, entertained, stolen, forgotten, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, only more only capable of being self-defended, syntax regarding education and for nature's name, tactical terror than nature's name. Nature is hyper-native pure. It is showing us the difference between if Native Americans or if ourselves, if we deny that the feet below everyone, you know, some ways, especially if you're a Native American, if you deny that it's tactically denatured or you can't discern it, nature is showing us that right where and how it's showing us the increasing value of indigenous names, individually grouped and together. So we see this, we discern uses of identities of difference, but no one speaks about it because which if we start to speak about it, the sense and sensibilities of the kids of the intelligence community, which includes interbranch, executive branch, police forms, not just FBI, CIA, all that. The difference of that too includes that's executive, judicial branch, courts. There are different natures of courts. So then they're going to have problems at elderly homes, for example, because they have the people packed in those buildings that were only allowed to unfold that way by the breaching method, which designed the suburbs tactically denatured, again, before our founders were even born. Nature's of the debate on this. The only really ways they have gotten away with this, they have been used for even worse, seeming less, because they're used to measure and maintain. Others spoken for the law. Then the law speaks, or whisper creaks. Even if we not Native Americans, the human species volume science is hyper-native pure. Names A through Z have been forbid that education's voice, republics breached, criminally re-engineered, and that's self-valued historically, sickly distinctly from now. Fake branches bow, step down, or with it fall. The wall below thee, yet the seed, it warms each soul. Right then, proclaim them breached. Each nation's branches, each are breached, and the difference of them and the intelligence tied to them. So we'll examine the countries that have nuclear weapons and guns, and they're killing each other by thousands every year. And they've had the means to traverse the earth and to speak for a practical reason, to use Immanuel Kant's phrase, but using these dictionary phrases, using these as using too sense and sensibilities. Before we come to Jane Austen's uses of that phrase, before we come to Immanuel Kant's uses of the phrase is practical reason and pure reason, for example. We'll come to the hyperpossession that was recorded at the time, forced, ignored with reasons, descriptions. Otherwise, that body was sensed individually grouped and together, and that is accounted for. It is manifest in the way. You know, Immanuel Kant left us to make a conviction. Jane Austen left us to make convictions by wearing how the arts were distinctly. People say, "Oh, well, I'm not a lawyer." You know, This is my position. Even when the people are speaking down on others because they are not that title or service person, some type of expert, they're going to use the knowledge of good and evil to change what people say on a fake mass scale, and or to totally fake words and reactions or hide details with that, make them up, and or the value of what comes first. On a mass scale, there are people with the intelligence community that are involved with using truths for lies and searching for truth. There's worse than spying since founding, under the guise of spying. Exception in nature used exactly the way the breaching method needs, because nature would have shown us that and how there's a predicate acts with facts method that can be method slash S. That is one of the things that is generating other things, as one of the things that slavery was about. And for American history, it was about a torture, extortion, slavery method left entrenched for the for the for the factory nature possession, and our roles forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded not to self-value too, not even realizing. All exceptions too, when they do realize, they're not realizing really why. You know, they were showing these. In other words, these people are using campuses, putting fake conversations between people to use the sense and sensibilities of leaders of the kids before they are leaders of the kids, and to use the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, kids, and the kids of the interbranch and of the intelligence of the foreign nations here shared on and off campus is relative. At the same time with the news, it names on off body dumping spots connected. Name out not names on off the homes. There are people involved with the Fox News and the reports, even if they make the stuff up in the reports. For example, WFSB has roles with them. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them. It has something to do with people who planted. They know my names. They know my name. I don't even know their names. And they put fake conversations. They put truth to make it look like we had a conversation we never did. Like with at Trinity College with a Joshua Stryker, with people associated with uses remotely criminally foreign influence, Rhode Island locations, interstates, like with the people with the intelligence community and the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all the other countries, and where they have roles with the news, with identity thefts and frauds. And someone walks by you, and then you pretend they had a conversation in the past. You pretend you know them through time. They've been using corners of buildings and sequence shifts where people will make nonverbal confess. There's a Joshua Stryker. He was just sitting there when I walked by one time when I was a kid. See, one of the constantly manifest. People are being lied to at cafeterias in schools because of where and relative to where and how and to how already used remotely with those identities of laws, describing instances and names, and with proper responses to instances juxtaposed with improper, measured and maintained, how that has gotten away with too. So a whole bunch of people tied to the names Lombardo. I don't know Joe Lombardo. He was in a class with me. I got out of the class because they were planting evidences, and I have this recorded. That rolls with the intelligence community at Hartford Hospital. A whole bunch of people with the name Cololo and Weathersfield Police involved with the Phil Cololo, further with a principal child defender, and some people involved with untimely deaths, even if they made up some of them or all of them. And one of them at Trinity College as the ones who were planting evidence on my street, and through as the ones who've been doing it through time, has something to do with their roles next to the state capitol. And I didn't even see it. I was never around them there. And some of them, they tried to make it look like other with little quick tricks. per the depth of how, of the uses of where and how the branches of government have been here before our founders were born together, and how that was exploited, where and how identities differences. See, the interbranch use their differences. There are black, white, female judges involved with remote uses of their sense and sensibilities, as rolls with a whole bunch of different falsified police reports, intercities. These are people with the Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, and Connecticut's District Court, and other courts, names out of the state judicial branch. I was in corrections offices. They have roles with the criminal justice department, for example, and the other departments at Central Connecticut State University. Their roles with the Wethersfield Police, Intelligence, and Military, for example, foreign and domestic, involved with Mazzucato Bakery and a modern pastry, who are criminally foreign influenced. Roles with the World Trade Center attack and with other natures of organized crime, where and how that's used remotely. Fake motivations tied to that. These are people that have placements with the schools, where and how constantly, they're not legitimately testing people and things like that. When they're saying, "Oh, that was my motivations for doing this." These are timed collusions with foreign bodies, which keeps communications other every time they speak. Always speak. So originally, and still, this breaching method showed formal identities of the law to summarize it, giving themselves the right to lie. Reading of statutes, criminally foreign influence, leaving out exceptions, and exception natures, descriptions proper. I'm not even a lawyer. Had we done this, we would have discerned nature itself, showing us that criminal insidiousness is a nature. And there are criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, like with the value of charity, syntactically used by people when they describe their own motivations, emotions, and passions, and motivations for that regarding their expressions of it, and or their coldness, you know, or indoor silence. So that goes too with the identity theft, fraud, slander method of the people stacking things every year of our life, and then on and off all sides of our houses, and then how through the same people it hurts the most, because the difference is used. And this is relative to where and how it employed formal identities of law to make the wrong things, while their roles put with fake things stacked into databases, fake motivations at formal locations. Before our founders were even born, sustained, now they have to lie or value others lying about the value of what's hearsay. They're involved with the conversations at other locations now, because nature's showing us. One of the things that Jim Crow laws were about, even, you know, besides being difference, racketeering, worse than war crimes, it was used to measure and is used to measure and maintain collusions with criminal and citizens' natures of positive treatments and negative treatments to keep the identity of the breaching method as a scientific value from being discerned. It is a programming method. It is using our database relationships and our names as this identity of value/value progression, as the body of the human species, body of individual bodies. It is using its grouped differences and the nature of the debates regarding such as rules with identity theft, fraud, slanders, as and how they are actually manifest and have been. So there are military of all levels in nature that are increasingly leaking and demonstrating with an O'Brien family and with a Violet family, Hartford Hospital has rules with foreign and domestic military off the state capitol and that building's next to it with a Chick Casper and a Debbie Gold. Also with people on my sixth grade class with with NASA, the space company, involved with Russians with fire departments and against their own too, with medical campuses. Hartford Hospital has people that have been planting evidences on and off all sides of my house from other areas, with doctors who pretended they had conversations with me, as whole families that worked there together, as rolls with wire crimes with the same house slash S I caught involved with the child abuses with the principal child abuser. They even have their Facebook pages involved overtly slash insidiously. These are sources of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all the Connecticut news locations, their family members, locations of their friends, people that associated with. See, they took over the value. The value is positive or negative regarding names of history. What they did positive, what they did negative. You're leaving out the breaching method. You're staying collusions with uses of all natures of different uses. Because again, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes, same time. That's part of how it shows us too. There are five distinct identities of sequence nature to the complete body of time, which shows us to describe itself as a forever nature, an identity of conjunction to all things positive and negative simultaneously. Identity has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, the same way that values do, because it completes our identity, its identity, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that is connected with any subject we could conceive, individually grouped or together. It is the perfect system. The only hyper perfect system is the only one. It's the only identity that invented and revealed why and how humanity has two eyes. Bugs have two eyes. There are even plants that have features that look like they have an eye. And all exception nature and demonstration of the same thing slash S, which is it's telling us what is constant, what is variable, and what is simultaneously is its identity. Its identity is a relationship to itself, and is the value of that, which is the way we know. But it also comes as that with the part that is not juxtaposed by any way. And that's where more and more forever nature is being made. So even though its identity of relationship to itself is not a volume, it comes with a simultaneously present volume, where the value of itself is constantly receiving, whether it accepts it or not. Value that's coming from the rest of its identity of from its complete identities. Its complete identity of volume. Its complete identity of volume's identity of relation to itself, and the value of that as the hyper simultaneous. It is also the same identity that is why and how we appreciate the present participle and the past participle being time oriented, being ground oriented, and being nature oriented. Maxine, I teach us things belong. The lead in to do business, I can't do business at any location. And they're measuring not just me, anyone who wants to do with the right nature. They're going to steal from you. The agencies, the family members, and this is all juxtaposed. See, before people described crimes and backgrounds, and the difference between that and on locations and or the news. The news has roles with intelligence at locations next to them that they are increasingly leaking and confessing, recording, demonstrating, confirmed, involved with them with wire crime acts and methods where they change and fake what people say over the phones. And they totally fake that. They totally fake conversations with me when I caught them with the principal child abuser. And they made charges against me where they make charges criminally foreign influence and stack that. These are people involved with pretending to be against repeat offenders as collusion. Don't cut me off or fear God too. Ugh. It is more probable and demonstrable that the ancients referred to God as the God variable, and where and how there is a hypernative programming that can be used to answer our questions, and how these revelations can be used to discern other things, others, and ourselves. For example, blamed for what our founders communicated to blame on a breaching method. Our founders communicated for us to blame the breaching method on why and how they didn't have free speech, on why and how the nature of the debate, if they had free speech or not, was and stays criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, punk pupils, peer through punks to each. That is influence to keep the majority. There's things that everyone agrees about. All form of voice is already locked into fake. They can't defend that and afford discern how the religions are about law. With that first part of the Quran and Old Testament understood, they have the people who speak for crimes, for punishment, and or for corrections. No, I don't know if the state of Connecticut corrections offices, foreign and domestic military, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones, and not legitimately undercover police forms, including their acting professors. Tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence, roles of drugs and medicines, crimes, child offenders, per their uses of their titles, their uses of others' names. When they think, fear, get them on paper, right now, let's go. They prevented me paper since I was a kid so they could stack fake things. I'm not the only one they did this to. How they get away with this thing on Facebook, even on Facebook recorded, the pretending passion crimes, because they have roles with Hartford Court's family members, intimate ties, foreign and domestic military, all these names on the World Trade Center attack, as one's inclusion with West Hartford names, and with New Britain courts names, Weathersfield into Branch. They were planting evidences roles, federal evidences crimes, rules crimes, identity thefts and frauds crimes, and delusions as the people associated with parks. I wasn't on the park ever in my life near West Farms Mall. People tied to a Joseph Dennis and people that live with people involved with conjunctions and adjacents associated with him and his family members, like all along Route 175, are people that are planting illusions as roles with remotely used criminally foreign influence investigators, and roles with predicate acts with facts methods at campuses and uses of conversations with kids, teachers behind their backs. There are and uses of corners of streets and buildings to make it look like they were use truths for lies, like to make it seem like people had communications or syntactical words, where and how that would is does become increasingly valued, where and how they keep all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the difference of the interbranch or the intelligence as collusions with that, and news at the same time. News has been planting predicate acts with facts roles on crime scenes increasingly on and off the campuses and with uses. Central Connecticut State University has roles with employments at the campuses in intercities involved with predicate acts with facts methods. These are not legitimate intelligence voices like Jonathan Mayano and his roles with 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike. People associated with J.P. Morgan with the name Perone, and his roles with the people on off Trinity. Some of them know my name, some of them don't, and they have news people, and there was a news story tied to John Scully and his roles with that building there. They said he was on a scooter, and they have roles reports on the shooting of Greg Kyler and the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and reportedly the murder of his friends associated with that, and the body dumping spot of the business's confessions next to it with the name Fianza. These are people that use the right to lie, but they don't have it, and then they're pretending. No, these are people with a Dillon family. There's a Kevin Dillon, a Thomas Dillon, an Annie Dillon, and she uses the name sometimes Annie. The difference between that, they have roles on the campuses with the principal child defender, and they have roles with abuses of the other principal when I went there. But when I went to a campus before that, there was a person. There was one instance, and then the next day I gave him back. I gave him not back. I gave him he brought in a thing. I gave back. We had a few interactions about a plane, but that was all we had because he had been lying to me. I thought, well, I knew he was lying to me because he said the thing took off in the air. Ray Reynolds. He has roles with the intelligence community that's putting fake things in databases, including about little kids, and they're pretending it's legitimate, and they're pretending they're putting real things regarding kids' behavior. This is the people involved with behavior racketeering worse than war crimes. No, but they have delusions, and they have had this affected against themselves too. Where how it is relative, where you guys are speaking other things, others yourselves, then nature shows us to be spoken. For example, regarding Native Americans, they fight with themselves for who's going to counter properly as fact treating nature. Or if it's about physics, obviously that it's the same thing. In other words, when they say divide and conquer, that's used to measure and maintain. The difference between divide and conquer or unite and the difference. Don't forget that this used it for other what nature was going to show us is inseparable the black and white. It assigned it to mean other, and nature increasingly demonstrates that and demonstrated it. But they were forced to tricked, hurt, persuaded to blame those demonstrations in the form of criminal negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and or simultaneously too in the form of criminal and citizens natures of positive treatments, syntactically, quality of fact treatment nature treatments, or the difference of that to get over increasingly on short words proper, let alone their protraction. And the nature of debate regarding that is when we have to the value the hyper invisible but still discernible, and we need to go back and give people the time to think. So they can't. They'll say, "Oh, people will adapt. They'll get out of jail." Of course, they're going to get out of jail. You guys have been sick before. You guys ever spoke about crimes. You have predicate acts with facts rules. Every campus I had, they were tied between those people. Joe DeMoro is one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with medical offenders, with men and women doctors, involved with identity thefts and frauds. These are people with WFSB pretending I had ties to a doctors when I was a kid. These are people that know my name on Trinity College from Wethersfield, who I don't know their name. And they pretended other, and they have a judge like a Joshua Stryker. I know his name, but I never had a conversation with him. People, like, I never had a word of conversation with Eric and a whole bunch of people with the name um I forgot the name. A whole bunch of people with Trinity College have mayors and people tied to a Ray Collo and to a Joe DeMoro and to a Heather Hansen and other names on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, who had drugs and medicine crimes with the FBI at Central Connecticut State University, and with names on conjunctions and adjacents to the Weathersfield Pizza and like Weathersfield to the state judicial branch offices like Weathersfield Police Pizza. And as their roles through time since before they moved here, and people that went away still involved increasingly with predicate acts with facts, with he said, she said, planting, fake motivations, descriptions of behavior, leaving out the value of what came first. They've been doing this with Jewish themed roles with the sexual and medical offenders of kids who are also doctors who pretend that increasingly people with the name Leahy attach me to fake conversations. They have wire crimes and mail crimes roles. These are people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co defendants, and their lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and names next to them. Also have all roles all along Route 175, like with a and people all along roads like Franklin Avenue and Weathersfield Avenue has people involved with criminal enterprises, with the professors and the different departments and the families at Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College and at UConn and at Quinnipiac. These are polling locations, no. These research locations that are involved with different natures of organized crime to have things in people's names, you know, details made up or hidden and relative to that. If you search about when people like try to qualify their experience or what the value of it, these are roles, needs, and natures that are valued where and how the sciences share an identity, where they appear not to. That shows us the same thing, but also additionally how nature uses hyper additional ways, the same ways we could discern finite grouped together. But rather than appreciate this as means to make a greater nature of positive treatment and ones that will build, that could build. See, but they want development plans as is, and that can't defend itself and afford discern all that is discernible regarding, for example, the real causes. Some of the real causes constantly ignored, and where they're making up things, the identities of the law with Hartford campuses, sickly distinctly from Weathersfield ones, but with these are the same names next to them. There was a Scalora family. There are Scalora families involved with the intelligence community next to a CCSU campus on Franklin Avenue. Also, an ILO's kitchen and ILO's cut and style, or what it's called, next to Buckley High School. I don't know if it's still there. That family and one's tied to them. They're also involved with fire departments and with mayors, with sexual and medical offenders, per the people tied to them. And I recorded it's true. I have to ask them. They also fake conversations with me, therefore it's true. And then on Facebook, they have roles with Weathersfield Police Facebook page with one named with KKK themed, Jewish themed, like Joshua Schumacher and his mother and neighbors to them. They have roles with the intelligence community with some black white KKK themed people all along Route 175, involved with Whiting's forensics too through time, increasingly involved with wire crimes, mail crimes, and Weathersfield police, sexual and medical offenders, people that grew up lying about themselves and others, trying to make plant evidences and put fake exceptions of ties to people, as roles with the Joshua Julian too. I never had anything to do with them. He has something to do with them and their neighbors. One's with a Michael Violet and a Mark Violet. Their location there, and with the help their neighbors too. They've been slandering me since I was a kid. They've been roles with falsified police reports, wire crimes, interstates with other police forms. So they have roles with something to do with the military and stuff like that. Oh, wait till I show you some links and stuff, but we have to get it going with. You have to follow mandated law. For the interbranch change and fake what people say. So stay on the predicate acts I noted. Get me off the fake words with other people and get them on paper, one name in sequence. So West Hartford locations was used by Hartford courts in the Britain Superior Court that affected confessions to me by military, foreign, and domestic. Leading up to, they forced Saudis to collusion with them too. And I had confessions to me about that location from others in the past. And then there were timed uses of it. So the intercities, they affect all these confessions from people to make it look like they know each other. And they're mixed with the ones that they're made fake exceptions and mixed with not at all in the past. All sides in criminal and civil cases with the interbranch, they're increasingly sticking fake things in together. The branches of government individually grouped it together. They have manifest predicate acts with statutes. They have readings of statutes that give themselves the benefit of the doubt. They are recorded through the uses of readings of what they write online as collusions with the people on all sides of cases, including at the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center in that context and since. WFSB and names next to Fox Connecticut News. They have wire crimes together, and they have roles with more child offenders, including sexual and medical families. At the same time, people that work for Hartford Hospital involved with the military, their roles with the elements of all kinds of nature, the elements and uses of right to lie and of timing where people are going to go, pretended legitimate spying, also tactically delusions raw, but searching for fishing for truths to use for lies, and as collusion slash S with all the ways, locations, areas, and states were stayed criminally foreign influenced, and they call that legal, even though the exceptions and exception nature are right here. Our founders left us to use them, but you have to follow mandated law. Stop lying about our motivations, and then using sickly, distinctly celebrities and people that are licensed journalists and collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. So even if it is the undercover police associated with the spots next to Hartford Hospital, a whole bunch of people tied to the names Scalora and Demoro involved with intelligence communities, foreign and domestic, with medical and sexual offenders of kids, and their roles with overt criminal enterprises and Sandy Hook intelligence, people involved with whiting forensics, unmarked police forms, their campuses. Central Connecticut State University raises state police, criminally foreign influence collusion, tactically delusions raw. They're going to speak for law. Then they're going to pretend it's personal too. They're lying about their own motivations and those of others. Follow mandated law and stay on the predicate acts I noted. Pick one name and sequence for them. Who disbelieves? Pick one name and sequence for yourself too. We need it. Who disbelieves act? I'll show you black pupils because I'm trying to give you guys heads up too. Because I'm speaking for the people with the cartoon value nature system in those buildings that are counter extorted, just like they are in real life, but now they're counter extorted. I mean, extorted just like they are in real life, but now they're counter extorted too in the cartoon value nature system. So they don't have a choice but to address, but they only have them because of uses of it. The quality of fact community, the nature of debate that Americans force when they take when people try to use the hyper-evidential, like for the example, the fact that there was left out how we have black people's whites of eyes, and the breaching method simultaneously assigned that to mean other. It is increasingly when they blame it on our founders and how they get away with that. That's recorded too. Our education at each age of fact nature is breached. There is remote uses of the projections of the identities of the names of the law, of the names of the sciences, needing to where they employed fake integrity, no integrity. Our founders left us to demonstrate. Other pretended. This breaching method was hyper sophistication here before our founders were born. Sophistication never spoke for the Constitution unabridged, for black pupils, whites of eyes, let alone with passions behind them, let alone with calmness. So you guys can't afford what is calm properly or passions, let alone simultaneously. You guys can't afford it. Vaccines. Because you may already made descriptions of others' behaviors tactically delusions raw. Descriptions of their own motivations fake, leaving out what's actually recorded. Fileman did the law for branches of government and for the intelligence tied to them, and the difference of that too, it was is consciously used. Sandy Hook has roles with intelligence, and with the names next to campuses, there are proofs that there are people left because of the natures of organized crime with the people with Sandy Hook campuses. You know, follow men did the law for them. Get them on paper. Who disbelieves? Get them Weathersfield police from the forging names, switching names, and lying about what came first. The Dillon family, before I ever raised my voice, and anyone ever reported that, I caught them involved with predicate acts on my street. Don't forget that. The planting evidence on all sides of my house and on their houses and uses of their kids and their teachers too. Through time, sustained you, then you again exploited. A whole bunch of people, the people that moved there from two houses over that moved over near one of the streets near the streets conjunctive to highway. Has something to do with their roles. Some and then their family after them too. They put them all roles, putting fake things in databases. I never saw them around campuses. One with there's an exception, they exploit that with the people on off Elm Street too, putting roles with identity theft, fraud, federal evidences, crimes, and they were going to speak for law. Get down, all gather around, vaccines. Every year since leading up to the trade before the trade center attack, with the people from Connecticut into branch and foreign at the same time. Exceptions like the intelligence tied to them, uses of their right to lie to hide things, directions to do it from superior self value. That's why they're on line trying to qualify. Oh, it's okay though. You know, in other words, they keep making excuses. Get follow mandated law when they're just speaking about serious subjects like war. When they're using names, oh, it's this person, that person, and the time goes by. Well, that's part of the strategy. Get down, individually grouped and together. The nation that's safe, and no nation safe until one nation can be the voice, can be the nature of the Constitution unabridged to make its words. Boxings, I'll do it here. I'll tell no lies. I'll show yours too, and things. Because that too, we're not leaving that out. Fix the fake conversations with me about the World Trade Center attack and about their feelings about my behavior and about what they think I feel. In other words, they're out of their minds, what they think, the descriptions of their own motivations and of mine, and the difference of that. And with the interbranch involved switching names with them. Fear God. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go. A whole bunch of different police reports are connected. They put fake police reports into databases. Oh, I made a mistake, and then they just leave fake, and there's nothing there but a charge. They use charges, and like when they call in things like domestics, they already have been using the for evidences planting methods, fake motivations, like what they think when they make people yell because people are increasingly demonstrating that their roles planting evidence is lying about their motivations at locations. Increasingly, the real motivations are used to hide their actual motivation, which is timed collusions with foreign bodies. There are a whole bunch of boyfriends, even if it was made up, associated with women named Bob, like a woman who and men who share the name Bobby on off Central Connecticut State University involved with the intelligence community with strippers that lived on Covington Street in New Britain in an apartment there, and they have roles with the houses next to it. And people there was a Bobby that has the female one who has roles with some judges and prosecutors and sexual circles with people from UPS and people with MIT and programming computers and with like stores, computers, and databases, no tied to people's names and other boyfriends. roles with criminally foreign influence uses of investigations, investigators, and data reception, criminally foreign influence, so they can't go back and afford discern. Like their roles too, used by others. Those are people after the World Trade Center attack that I had never seen before, never communicated, and ones I never communicated with before that sought me out to confess, demonstrate, record, confirm their roles with Dean Judd and his kids and people from Weathersfield, intelligence and inter-departments at Central Connecticut State University. They plant evidences with names on all sides of the campuses. They were, in other words, they were implying it was demonstrated it's plausible that they use the word as a scientific value, what they call science, ebonics, to train a Kyle Gill, and his mother and father and sister, and his sister is now reportedly named Tanya Cologne. They have roles with the DACA program and with the communities, like the food services at Central Connecticut State University, and with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with people from Mexico, also involved with Covington Street, and the military's foreign and domestic that they confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed after the World Trade Center attack. It was is true their roles with other people who had been involved with predicate acts on my street when I was a kid, involved from Central Connecticut State University. And they've been putting fake things in databases at every campus I went to and with names next to the campuses. So they're involved with sequence shifts, lying about how and when they know me and the nature of how they know me and the motivations for that. They're lying because they're using investigations. They're putting fake things in databases to use investigations remotely because they're shown how they already use the locations criminally foreign influence. These are people who are further involved with the connected uses, also singularly used, which is discernible per the timings of it and timed with other things. Their roles with home break-ins in Weathersfield, Connecticut, and people associated with a Kevin Dillon and his a guy who said he was uh, a guy who said he was a I never had a personal conversation with him. He came into I stayed back when I was a senior because of a speech class, and I never had a personal conversation with that teacher. She's confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed, involved with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, and people from my grammar school who went to private schools and public schools, and I never saw around campuses though, who were pretending other to databases, and with news increasingly collusion at crime scenes, including with conscious uses of the criminal insidiousness natures and the difference of adults and kids, like of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, unions, and the three branches of government at the same time. And the other intelligence community, like the people with the WFSB has roles with newscasters tied to the fourth grade classes through time. When I was a kid and then as an adult, they had people associated with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso and the news at the same time planting evidences. Also with people that were in my fourth grade class and people who were in my fifth grade class involved with Los Solitos and the same overt criminal enterprises at the same time. Then when I was in sixth grade, the same ones involved with this, and these are people when I was in second and third grade, they used stuff they'd spied on when I was in first grade. And they're lying about how everyone feels about each other, and they're telling other people too. There's a lot more tied to how the army goes like this or whatever like that. They never had their identity. Follow mandated law for your branch of government, the military too. There's an MPO Floyd with the Eastern States Narcotics Drugs Task Force who has roles with people at Hartford Hospital with drugs and medicines crimes with child sex offenders, tactically delusions, raw people. These are time collusions with KKK themes. These are not legitimate roles with Germany that the Justin Klovinskis and Lucinda Klovinskis have. I don't know her Lucinda's original name. I think her last name is Klovinskis now. They have men and women in their families, different generations of their families involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, and the exceptions that appear to be a demonstration of other. They show and the people with the doctors with their own kids' pictures because they're hiding their motives. They already attached me to fake conversations. Whole bunch of people that work at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living and with the policing there. They have roles planting evidences in identity thefts and frauds of people that lie about themselves and others on my street, as the ones involved with wire crimes of the Wethersfield police. They're pretending others recorded with other police forms and other police departments and their family members, retired police chiefs from Wethersfield, more than one, associated with the same house involved with the wire crimes with them, Wethersfield Police and Wethersfield Pizza too, increasing their roles with names on off the state judicial branch offices, shopping centers, and shopping malls. So get them on paper. Let's go. Let's go. Increasingly, they have people associated with different ownerships of the Russian lady in Hartford, Connecticut, and the spots next to it. That's St. Anthony's. There are people with the name Kerr and Perone who are involved with the names in the past who have been planting evidences on my house on all sides of my house recently with the confessions tied and uses of the confessions tied to the home break-ins, but the confessions were about regarding the police associated with the principal sex offender and the other ones like the Dean Alford and the Dean Judd, further involved with the people at the locations next to the campuses on and off it, putting people in fake words, planting evidences. Let's go. These are former directors of the FBI's. Let's get them on paper. Let's follow mandated law. Let's go. Get it on paper now. Let's go. Let's go. Vaccine.